Our success like UPI has come when we invented what was required for our country to grow.
We know that India is proud of its fintech story, especially the whole UPI.
What we overestimate is taking success as a granted. We forget that still there are a lot more things that other world is doing and moving.
Today, we have Navin Surya, one of the early builders of India's digital finance and fintech ecosystem. Over the last 9 years, his work has moved across payments, lending, insurance, wealth, regulation, investing, and ecosystem building. With so much of digital payment happening, there's a lot more digital fraud that has also started.
We saw all the stakeholders coming together right up to from RBI itself. Bigger challenge that we really have in India is the enforcement and real consumer protection around.
But where is the industry going wrong, in fact?
Problem is that we are trying to offer a consumer a product which he is not yet qualified for. So your biggest first horse has to be payments for them to get digitized and get access. Second, I said everybody need to have an insurance for their safety, health and accident, which is usually missing. Third is emergency credit.
So what is the biggest risk in India's digital finance ecosystem today?
Well, I think that lucky it's not happened yet, but it can happen any day around.
And we are not ready.
We're not ready.
So you have been a founder, now an investor, you've been a policy maker running the Payments Council of India. You've done various hats and really like serious.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to where things started because, you know, what I want my listeners also to understand that, you know, what runs in that mind that makes it a growth mindset. So you created ItzCash even before the world knew about fintech.
Yeah.
We were still in the physical, economy when it came to financial services. So what is it that you saw that others were not seeing at that time? Especially, let me tell you, the banks and all. We were still not there that you saw. What was it?
So I come from a business family, and being part of a business family, I mean, whatever I can remember from the very early childhood, like being at my own shop and doing something. And as we grew, we used to do a lot of business. We used to go, it was like part of trading kind of a business. So we used to even go and, let's say, order, procure, and everything was physical cash. I used to kind of carry physical cash in my pocket, go to Kolkata, Delhi. So it was a first-hand experience. And as I started my entrepreneur journey, which actually started in 2000, ItzCash came slightly later, about 4-5 years later. And we knew very clearly that the physical cash usage in India is a big problem. And everything
but it's a whole parallel economy, right? When you started.
Parallel is a different kind of a problem. But the bigger problem was that if more things are going to go digital, how would you actually pay? Money is not, if money is going to be physical, then how would the actual transaction move?
True.
So that was a very simple thesis.
True.
And having experienced it firsthand in early childhood, I knew this is the right thing to do. So it was very clear that the gap, and by the way, that time it was less than 1% digital usage, which today in the country is around 25-30%.
Correct.
So if you see the jump in less than like 20-25 years, it's humongous. And still miles to go.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you saw that opportunity that if everything else is going digital, whether people are shopping digital, then why not, have the
how would they complete the transaction, right? Because for settlement, you need money.
Yeah.
If that's moving at a lightning speed of digit, this cannot move physical space.
So what were you doing that at ItzCash? Like, was it, adopted faster initial years or what were the challenges?
Yeah, so we probably got lucky because we were part of the SL group that time, and there were some in-house use cases within our own, like Dish TV was one of the biggest use case that time. In fact, the problem started with them discussing with me that we are trying to reach to the rural area. Their problem was same. The television goes through physical wire, but only in places where density of population is high, right? If you have to go to villages, you can't because then laying the cable in villages with less population is extremely difficult.
Right.
So the only answer was satellite.
Right.
But when you do satellite, you can reach content, you can reach boxes. But every month getting payment from them, you don't have that typical traditional cable wala going and collecting.
Yeah.
So they needed a corporate system.
Oh,
so that's where the whole idea started. And then I kind of started conceiving it based on our experience. And I knew that this problem, what they are facing, while we are solving for them, why do we have to do a single mono use kind of? So prepaid card we've all seen as a calling card, right? Absolutely. Everybody knew that was the solution that time. Yeah. But the twist that we did is that why should we solve this problem for one company? Why can't we make it multi-purpose? So what we did is for first time, the same card can be used or same coupon or a token, whatever you call it today, could be used for multiple services. For e-commerce, for a train ticket booking, for something like something which we did for the first time, that you could on text do a transaction, which today, of course, looks very doable. That time, it wasn't even imaginable, right? A very simple text, and you could pay. And you could send a donation to Siddhivinayak and they send you prasad at home. So those like awesome experience, very early days. It was magical for customers.
Correct. But did you see the adoption? Like people were adopting in the smaller towns, while I understand, or is it the metro consumers who's more aware has the difficulty, or is it where do you see the resistance and adoption?
Our take on customer is not based on geography.
Okay.
In payments is very simple. The horse is the use case, and the bullock cart is the payment. So you go to where the use case is. So let's say district was all rural and semi-urban areas. Train ticket was everywhere because everybody travels by train, right? Siddhivinayak is more, let's say, urban phenomena in and around Mumbai and some rural areas of Maharashtra, early days. So in this case, the transaction entirely or a customer set entirely depends on the use case that you're bringing. So every use case that you use or you bring as an option of a payment, you have to look at who's the customer, where it is, and we have to make sure that our products are available there. We educate them, we do the hand-holding. And this is how we saw it. And a lot of consumer who did not have bank account, debit card, or a digital experience. We needed a touch point for them to experience, for them to be educated, and also them to trust in case something goes wrong to go and talk to. So we ended up creating this franchise model.
But today, do you say that, like we are celebrating the whole digital payments and with UPI and all the success, the entire digital public infrastructure. Today, if you had to build this whole thing, how would it look?
If you see some of the challenges that you see even in a UPI and amazing solution, we are all a big fan. But we do know at the back end, there are at times the challenges around failure transactions, the customer servicing, and how do you even further spoon it out in the next level of journey. In fact, part of the time that I spent even with NPCI as a part of their innovation council, we were trying to solve that problem way back. With a different project called Project Vajra, which was nothing but a blockchain-based UPI to solve some of these problems.
We tried.
It was slightly early, but I think a lot of learnings, and those learnings are today being used, I think, in CBDC program, which is a government's RBI's own currency or a digital currency.
But in today's, with so much of digital payment happening, there's a lot more digital fraud that has also started.
Absolutely.
The scam, the fraud, and the kind of actual setup which make you feel that it's all true. But because these are the big problems, right? People are still unaware. So I remember, Navin, we were trying to do one activation in some part of the tier 3 town of India. Now there's so much fear that even doing the QR code scanning, they were scared that fraud ho jayega.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's the other extreme that people have gone. And
see, the reality is that fraud in any situation, whether digital or no digital, was always part and parcel of the lifestyle. As the scale grows, the modes and the types of those frauds keeps changing. But ultimately, the other guy is out there to kind of get your money.
That is true.
So every new item, and as the scale is happening, and we do know that at times there are gaps in customer understanding. So we saw all the stakeholder coming together, right up to from RBI itself, right? So many advertisement you would not have seen. If you see the last decade and before that, you would not see so much of a consumer, let's say, communication right on the television, right? So it's about awareness. I won't say there is any permanent solution yet there, but are there continuous preventive measures? Yes. There is at an association level, there is at an entity level, there is at a regulator level, there is at a government level. There is at a touch point or a multi-channel point. So everywhere people are trying more. But like you said, that it's always the case, the human greed versus, right, the human ingenuity and people who are there cheat. It's a continuous, let's say, a tug-of-war. One side keeps trying to find new ways. The other side keep kind of trying to disseminate that information. So work is happening. Do we have to do a lot more? Absolutely. I won't say it will go away. But I would say net, I think one big decision, which is globally today, at least in the payment industry, is well respected. And I think now every industry in India anyway is adopting within the financial services is OTP, right? The second factor.
The second.
And let's say OTP is probably one of the method, but this whole second factor authentication, which originally started in Europe, but India did it in a big way, every transaction, and the alert. Again, if you see Western markets, the alerts were not compulsory, were not common. Today, everybody has adopted it. The only bigger challenge that we really have in India is the enforcement and the real consumer protection around it. Those two things, I think we still have to work.
Yes.
And even there, the bigger problem is enforcement.
Enforcement, true.
The actual nabbing of the criminals, doling out the real harsher punishments, making some sort of an example.
Law, stricter law.
Laws are there, but I think by the time you catch, the problem is the system is choked.
True.
The problem
Yeah.
is the infra. So I think that one problem we address, that's where the Western countries have some advantages because their enforcement is very good.
Yeah.
So consumer feels more empowered and let's say some sort of a protected.
Correct.
Here we have all the measures in place, but because of the systemic weakness in the infra, we see
Yeah.
a lot more problems. Let's say the solutions taking a lot longer for them to kind of reach the actual benefit coming takes a lot
Yeah,
longer.
absolutely. The consumer is still more vulnerable currently.
Yeah, yeah.
But coming to the India's fintech story, whether it is a reality, I
Yeah.
mean, it is a reality, but is it now a overhyped? So we know that India is proud of its fintech story, especially the
course.
whole UPI.
Yeah.
But if we are being honest, India, now do you think, are we the fintech capital in the world? Or
But I would say net. If you're not the capital, we are amongst top 3. Right? And the reality is in all emerging and developed or developing economies, we're still the fastest growing.
Yeah, true.
So if you look at clearly order of like US, China, almost similar, and India
Yes.
very clearly.
Yes.
And in terms of growth, India is still growing faster. And the headroom to grow, I think India is still a lot more than both the other countries. So I personally believe that in a decade or so, we will be neck to neck with both of them, with both of the
Is it?
countries.
Yeah.
Yeah. The scope is there. The
scope is there.
The overall, I mean, if you leave the currency challenges aside, but if you see everything else on a PPP level, I think you're pretty much there.
But tell me, what is it that China has got from the adoption side, whether they had their WePay or Alipay
Yeah.
and all of that? They started early.
Hmm.
Is something that as in India, we are still, I mean, what are we missing that they have it and what are they missing that we are really strong at, with
Well,
your
so
kind of...
UPI is very much an answer, right, that we had. So China had the state support and UPI had the same thing. And
Okay.
UPI had the entire ecosystem aligned to kind of
To
make
it,
it
yeah.
happen. And that's a success story, right? Probably something similar can happen in CBDC over a period of time, but a lot more on the wholesale and let's say global international space than the retail space. But that's where probably the relevance is a lot more. So I would say in terms of most numbers, in terms of values, we still have a challenge because of the currency conversion.
Yes.
But in terms of volumes, I think we are already kind of hitting through the roof. In terms of growth rates, by the way, India, I remember 3 years back at GFF FM when she talked about it, that India has the highest adoption rate when it comes to actually adapting to fintech services or financial services across the globe,
Correct.
right? Almost 30-40%. I'm
Yeah,
forgetting
we
the
are
number,
on that.
but we are one of the fastest.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of check boxes where when it comes to financial services, digital financial services, whether the fintech word remains or whether it becomes digital financial services, doesn't matter. We will continuously grow.
But India's always still been so even in my financial services experience, we've still been a phygital
It is.
world because we still are not 100% digital. You still need that last mile, whether
Absolutely.
in any of my, it was insurance, whether it was housing.
Yeah.
Do you still see us not being 100% digital, but this whole phygital
If you
setup?
have to become massive and very big player, you have no option but to be omni or a multi-channel, which is nothing but a phygital model, which was what our learning was at ItzCash. And that's why we were present at every headquarter, district headquarter level already, way back. I mean, I'm talking 10 years back, right? So that's a clear answer that ultimately, if you have to grow big, you have to cater to India, which is layered segments, layer habits. I mean, India, everything is a thali system. You
Yeah.
can't just satisfy a customer by offering a monologue system,
Yeah.
a mono product or a mono channel. So if you want to be big, you have to be open to everything. The challenge, however, is that no institution, no business, no single fintech can be specializing in everything. That's where the problem is that
Yeah.
most of the time the challenge happens when a large institution thinks that I can build overnight online channel, and the large digital players start thinking that, hey, I can build a very physical channel very
Yeah,
fast.
yeah.
That convergence, I think, has to happen somewhere. Somewhere a respect and people working and collaborating more. It's already had started happening,
Yeah.
those who understand.
Yeah.
But that is the probably next phase where the more integration, more collaboration.
And I see and I hear you. I even read and you speak about this convergence, and I want you to tell me more because I do agree. Because ultimately, all the financial services we are either single digit or early double digit penetrated.
Absolutely.
No matter how much we say mutual funds sahi hai by MFeed, great job. Still not there.
Miles
All
to
my
go.
insurances are single digit. What I've
Absolutely.
seen. So where are we then? And the fantastic payment system on top of it. So, but still, when it comes to real financial services penetration, we are still, where is the
So I
gap
think
there? And where is the industry going wrong? in
very,
fact?
very interesting question. And unfortunately, I still keep answering it after 2 decades. And
It's
the answer is still same.
Yeah.
So I remember we doing some report along with Dr. Vatal committee, though it was on a digital payments framework. And a big discussion that we had, and personally I had a very strong belief, which I shared with it, which is there in a diagram. So at that time it was a pyramid structure which is changing to diamond demography of India, right?
Okay.
But fundamentally we said that the problem is that we are trying to offer a consumer a product which he is not yet qualified for. Because initially, if you see the focus of inclusion or driving the inclusion penetration was through banks.
Absolutely.
The reality is the cost structure, the access, that consumer's mindset, the confidence to interact with banks was not at all there. So it was a very hard kind of a task, both sides. It was like two completely different ends to meet.
Together.
And it was too hard a work. At some stage, it started converging by more product. But fundamentally, our belief, and at least I've personally always been championing that, see, everybody, the moment they born, the moment they become like little aware, they definitely need to use money.
Absolutely.
So your biggest first horse has to be payments for them to get digitized and get access, whether or not it's through bank or anybody, but that. Second, I said everybody, the moment they start becoming, let's say, a little bit meaningful, they need to have an insurance for their safety.
Right.
Whether a health or something, especially health, probably health and accident, which is usually missing. Third is emergency credit. Unless you identify player, and there are microfinance has done an amazing job.
Yes.
Unless we see them as a horses to champion the inclusion, to drive it and allow them to cross-sell everything, allow them to leverage. Because what we also realize that the whole problem of serving at that level is that you can't really sustain or survive.
Yeah, it's expensive.
It's expensive, right?
Expensive.
So unless you are allowed to do multiple things using the similar channel with the same customer, because this ticket sizes and available money is so low.
Yes.
And within that, if you just do one service, simply you're not visible.
Correct.
So we did see some changes, if you see in the last program, which was more successful on the inclusion, which had credit element, which had insurance element.
Yes.
But I still believe that there are still gaps, that unless you start from the demand cycle side, that these are three basic needs. And once the person starts earning, he has some saving, then the banking becomes relevant. Then the wealth becomes relevant. Then the life insurance start becoming, let's say, relevant.
Yeah, much later.
But the initial part of the journey, we need to champion and empower the initial part a lot more, converge a lot more to make it feasible. Thankfully, digital channel education is easier. Access is easier now.
Right.
I also see one big gap, which is more on a business side. I think the products are still not matching what they really need.
No, they're not simpler also. And I have done that work in my, 1 decade experience, but it is somehow we're not able to simplify.
Exactly.
Because obviously we also need a lot of our proof and checkpoints and regulatory covers.
Yep.
And by the time if a customer is clicking, it is 5, 6, 7, 8 clicks.
Yeah. So these 2-3 things we have to put it in place. Hopefully newer entrepreneurs, as they start coming in, as the policies are becoming more and more open, we will see you have a lot more headroom to grow, provided you have the right solutions.
And at the same time, we are saying that payments people have adopted. Now see, if you have to learn from payments, if that is 30-40% adoption, whilst this is in single digits, so somewhere people are ready to pay, which means there is a market, there is a demand. But something is not going all the way there, or we are not giving them the right product.
Two things that happened and that pushed 3 digital services very well. Payments, it was first demon.
Yeah, demon, of course.
Because you were forced to change the habit because there was no other option.
Yeah.
So while we were growing at a certain rate, it was still healthy, but that pushed the change faster.
Correct.
And then came the COVID. It's not just pushed the payments, but it also pushed
insurance during.
Exactly. So it pushed everything else, especially if you see during that time, the credit became very big on the digital side, right? The entire wealth, the number of customer. So I think those two have created impact and changes, which are kind of, I would say 90% of those customers who adapted that time have retained. Before that, you could not retain them.
You couldn't, that's true.
Right? The ratio was low.
Yeah.
And that actually proven to them that this is a lot easier way to do things than the otherwise. So thankfully, we had some of those changes. But there are still other products where we have not seen those events. And that's where the gap is. But one has to take advantage of those initial learnings.
No, absolutely. And that, Navin, makes me think that are we then truly building a financial inclusive system? See, like the other day, and I'm going to go on record and say, because I saw this video by Bajaj Group and they were celebrating their 100 years. And one of the things Sanjeev Bajaj said that we are becoming truly financially inclusive, in our journey, which may so. Yes, they're doing a lot of work. But do we really understand and are we really doing some, cutting edge work there? Because that's where I feel China has done something different.
Okay, so 2 views here. One is, thankfully, the way the demography has changed, and I briefly mentioned about diamond,
Yeah.
right? So you had a very kind of, let's say, large number of people at the bottom of pyramid. That pyramid shape is anyway changing. And it's becoming diamond, so middle class. So I would say the case of inclusion that way is reduced because now, and the government knows it. That's why their focus of all their money is only for the bottom, which is shrinking.
Okay.
Sometimes we all crib that government doesn't do for anything for middle class, but they know that they have found some way. They're better off than the others, and we put our resources at the bottom. So that change has already happened. What we now need is a transforming of approach of a financial health.
Yeah.
Because what we are selling, what people are buying, how they are buying. The problem is that there's a lot of experiments going on. There are a lot of other complications that are arising. And because of that, we are seeing some friction and the confidence and trust issues. So unless we see a health approach, a financial health approach, 360 degree, that financial health is equally important as your body's health and your mental health.
Yeah, that's such a big point you're bringing, right? People keep talking financial health. But have we really cracked that as well?
Yeah.
And
So
what do you think should be in financial health?
No, so I think now's the time that the policymakers can start. I mean, we measure the indexes and payments, for an example. We measure a lot of other economic data.
Yes.
But I think somewhere we need to start create an index or a model around financial health. Where are we making people more financially independent in the country, and what is the definition of that at a different level? Where are we truly there? Are we entrapping them? Are we kind of really helping them directly,
Empowering
indirectly?
them,
Yeah. And entrapping could be in different way, by giving wrong loans, by giving wrong insurance products, or not offering the right products,
a lot of
or not offering a
mis-selling.
product, or not even a product being rightly available to right people. So, all kind of things. The question is that who will bell that cat and bring out some measurements which start getting tracked.
How about you with many of your founders? Because I like this financial
I
health.
keep socializing a lot, but in my current phase anyway, I'm not spending so much of time on the industry side now.
So to bring that side of you, Navin, from a founder yourself to now an investor with your Beams fund house, what is the chain that you had to transit? Because one is where you are acting
Very
operationally now.
Yeah.
You are.
So I do a
looking at
3
founders.
role. One is where I invest my own money, where I'm like single person responsible for everything. About 15 to 20 companies portfolio. Some of the big ones are like OneCard, Lakshmi, Castler, etc. Right.
Nice.
So interesting. So that's there. Everything is like my money, my decision, my, let's say, reward or penalizing, whatever you call. The second is fund manager, which is more like a Beams, which is a growth stage fund.
Okay.
Right. So personally, I invest very early days, very early startup, and 15 is, by the way, in like 10 years. So my ratio of rejection is extremely high. Okay. So Beams is a fund where we manage others' money. Of course, we also have invested money. So that's a different role. And thirdly, largely I spend time with founders on mentoring or advising them.
Oh, interesting.
So one big change that I see in all of it, if I see on an investor side, the focus is always on that you have a fiduciary responsibility to somebody's money to return. My own, it's the same thing that I have to prove to myself that I'm doing the right thing and also having the right impact. When it comes to being an advisor to a founder, it's a very different ballgame. And my one sentence to all of them is that I have made more mistakes than you. That's the only value I bring to the table. Right.
Nice.
And the smartest founders learn from others' mistakes. So it's up to you now. It's exactly more like just guidance. It's like they say it for angel, right? You have to just pass on the right messaging, right knowledge, right connects, and then trust them to do the job. And that was a big transition I had to make because founders get passionate very fast, right? So you say something, you tell them anything, and you want to follow it through. Happen, not happen.
Yeah. You want to see
it's very difficult to let go and trust the process and the
Yes.
system after that. So that was a one big transition. But now I've been doing it for like 8-9 years, so 17 to 26. For me, the conversation is very simple. Like we were just briefly chatting before the podcast that it's about the purpose. What is the purpose of the founder? What is the vision behind that purpose? Does he understand the customer, who his real customer is? And half the time I see the gaps there itself, the understanding of the customer itself.
I agree.
Right? And then lastly, but most critical, how much he knows about the regulation. and the compliance is required.
That is so important.
That is more critical in
That's
financial
more critical,
services, maybe not in others, though generically everywhere,
Right.
because you're supposed to comply with some laws still if you're running a business.
Yeah, but in financial services.
So these 3-4 things are generic what I look at it. And these 3-4 things, I think in the answers you can easily figure out that what he's up to or what she's up to. And if that cuts, then rest is easier. In my mind, technology has always been kind of a means to an end, not the end game.
Right. So you're very clear that you're investing still in the fintech or the financial services.
Yeah, most of my investment has been around technology or financial services or fintech. And I believe if you know cricket, play cricket, don't try football.
Awesome. So that's a fantastic insight that play on your strength.
Exactly.
So when you meet young founders, fintech founders now, which is that one mistake you see again and again? Like fundamentally doesn't change. It still keeps coming.
I think 90% of them don't have clarity around the purpose and vision. Half the time they think there is an idea which is interesting and in my mind half the time or more than half the time is just the feature of a product.
Or it's easy money available, they think they can just bring in.
Yeah, so you have a good profile, you have some good interesting ideas. Ideas have legs. I read that book long time back, but again, the leg needs the whole body.
Yeah.
Right?
And
the strength comes.
Execute.
So that's one common thing, and I give a lot more importance to that because founder's journey is the most difficult journey.
Right.
It looks very good for a first couple of years. It's like a honeymoon. But as you get into it, it's something you can't come out easily. You have to, it's not something that you can quit in between. You have to see it through.
Absolutely.
Right? So for seeing it through, the kind of resilience you need, you as a person needs to have a very strong personality, very strong mind frame. And those things need, first and foremost, what is your purpose behind all of this?
Right.
What do you want to see for yourself getting achieved by going through this journey?
Yeah. Why are you doing it yourself?
So sometimes they have some purpose which is not clear. It is like borrowed purpose. You can see it through, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I personally give a lot of importance to that piece, that what is the reason that you're doing. That subconsciously that will make you a winner or a loser. Because you're a winner only if subconsciously you know that I have to make it through, whatever may come.
Absolutely.
Right?
So talk me through it, because you use the word resilience and you spoke about failure. In your journey, you would have seen failures, you would have had to pivot, because most of the times where people get stuck is because I bought this original idea and now you're emotionally and you're still trying to build, not realizing that the world you will have to. It's not going. So you must have had to pivot.
Absolutely.
So what are those signals and how did you manage failures?
So if you see again, failure is a part of the success, right? As we say, with one success, you're probably 4 or 5 failures behind. Yes. And they're probably the foundation for that success. Those learnings are what have prepared you for that success. So I actually started in year 2000. There were multiple businesses we were trying at that time. The first business was a B2B side of the payments and marketplace.
Okay.
Which was, I would say, a mediocre success, which had to at some stage consolidate. Then we did ItzCash. Obviously, we had multiple products. We had one of the largest portfolio of products. Some were too early, some were too late, some didn't work at all. So there were a lot of learnings, what works, what doesn't work. We were also doing a lot of travel-related services, so multiple experiments there. Many of them didn't work. So what we realized is that one has to have a very clear science behind how many things you try, at what pace you do, how much budget you put in, what kind of teams you deploy, what kind of people you deploy. You can't quit. You have to keep doing it to create scale in a country like India.
Correct.
There's one common saying that I've been hearing over the last 2 decades is that Indian market, in most cases, is an inch deep but mile wide. Wow. So it's very difficult for you to build a monoline, very big company in a short period of time. Okay. Which means whatever you do, you have to have a multi-flavored. I keep going to the concept of thali. You need to have a multiple flavor. If you don't have, and that's where most people fail. And I'll give you a very simple example. What's the difference in a most valued bank and a let's say normal bank? Both of them have a same license, same empowerment, same products they can do.
Right, correct.
It's a cross-sell, right?
It's a cross-sell.
It's about leveraging the same customer for more services. And today you see even a bank, most of the banks are no longer just doing deposits.
Yeah.
Or a lending. They do probably 100 more things.
Right.
And the only way they grow value is by doing those multiple things. So the most successful entities in India
Yes.
have had that DNA where they could do multiple things leveraging on their core strength and create that network effect, whether in any business, including financial services. Financial services, all the more true.
Yeah.
And interestingly, that gives you the highest value for customer because your ability to retain customer in
Is
financial
much more.
services and the life cycle is the longest.
Correct.
Bank, of course, the longest, but even other product,
Yeah.
even insurance, especially if it's a
NBFCs,
life. Yeah. So in most cases, your potential time with the customer is the longest. And it could be, and if you're a bank at the apex level, then obviously it's a lifetime.
It's a lot.
So that clearly says that you need to be able to offer variety. So the learning is that you need to have a model where you could keep bringing different flavors and still manage it well, which means you will have to be kind of ready for failures. The question is, how do you take that and when do you stop? Most of
Yeah,
the time,
that's
people get over obsessed.
Correct.
That's another problem.
Yes.
They can see it's not working, but because it is their founder's idea, they're so obsessed with it, they don't want to give it.
Yes.
Unless it is scientific research project, not product, please give up.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong in giving up for the product level, not for your core philosophy. So you have to figure out that what I'm not going to give up and what is okay to give up.
Yeah. What are you ready to trade off?
Yeah. So again, go back to purpose. You need to have clarity that what is it that I am ultimately kind of going to work for, and where I will stop, where I will not stop, when will I stop.
Yeah.
So I personally believe failures are an important lessons. Also, one interesting learning in last kind of this career is that what looks a failure at one point in time could be your pivot to a success. For example, we didn't get a payment bank license and we were extremely confident. So scientifically on every parameter, in my mind at least, we had 100% score.
And
right?
you didn't still
We
get
didn't
it.
get it for whatever reasons, right?
Yeah.
But probably that, and we were all very upset about it.
Of
It was a
course.
visible kind of a first time a big failure for us as an organization, not to achieve something we set out to. And it was a personally kind of some bit kind of a setback for me at that time. But if I look in the hindsight, I think that's the best thing that would have happened to us. Blessing in a disguise,
Yes,
like you said,
because
right?
that pushed you to.
That pushed us to become profitable, to look at more investors, to kind of grow the company. We would have either listed if we wouldn't have done the M&A. So
Right.
both options were open. So sometimes I've also learned that what looks like a failure could be actually a milestone for your next success.
Yeah, that's true actually. And then
Yeah.
the hindsight when you start.
It's a matter of time and the lens that you see it from.
Yes, it's just that at that time you have to be ready to not give up.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about regulation, because regulators I know, so I came from retail.
Yeah.
Part of my experience was retail and IT, and this was whole BFSI was new to me. One of the things they constantly said is highly regulated you have to be, and which is true. Needed, much needed, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it does become a bottleneck to many things
Yeah.
that you want to do. So what is your experience and what needs to change?
So I think I have a mixed views here. There are things where regulators have done amazing job, and probably it's recognized across the globe, right? That the way our economy has been managed consistently in crisis, which could have taken to a very different path.
Yeah.
But the way we managed it, right? Amazing. So amazing set of people. The way we have,
We'll still say it today.
sorry,
And what we are going through today, do you still stand by it?
I think so. See, the
Given
situation
the-
is a lot tougher on the macros, and the way we are managing, I don't think there is any other way to manage it. So I would say still the history at least proves that whatever they were doing, the reality is at the time those actions were taken, they were not liked, right?
Yeah.
And there's always room for improvement. That's a separate thing. But I'm saying generically, the history has proven that on the regulatory side, the regulators have delivered every time on the macro critical aspects.
Right. True.
Yeah, there has been and again, we've seen the fintech has been a beneficiary, right? The number of license, and we at the forefront, right? We were the first non-bank license
Oh,
holders.
you were the first, right?
So we've seen the continuous opening. The only thing that's something which sometimes I don't understand, that sometimes they get over paranoid or a wrong prioritization mix, right? Like I said, for an example, if you have to really drive inclusion, then you have to give a lot more flexibility, freedom, support to, let's say, something like a microfinance organization,
absolutely.
right? But suddenly you start getting paranoid about the risk, and then you start regulating like them also like a bank,
Yes.
right? With that kind of a
That
iron
kills
glove,
the,
right? So that squeezes that potential,
absolutely.
right? So sometimes those extra cautious approach can kill a potential prematurely. If I compare it with, let's say, a US market. So US model is that I've made the highway, I've made the lanes so fast, so I don't have a problem of speed limits. You guys go ahead, just drive. We're not going to have too many speed breakers. We're not going to have too many lights. Just run. I mean, for miles you can run.
So you're making it seamless for the
So you
operators.
give a very long breathing
Long
period
breathing, yeah.
for you to really become bigger, get experience, become resilient.
Yes.
Here, I think because systemically we have not made those big highways in our capacity of institutionalizing regulation everywhere. We want to build every few kilometers some speed breakers.
Yeah,
So what happens is that you have a founders coming in doing a good job. Every time you do a next level scale, you see something coming up to prevent that.
Yeah.
Not always, but in some cases.
Yeah.
And sometimes there looks like a slightly excess reach. And sometimes it also looks like there is a tug of war between the larger institutions and the new age players. And is regulator taking a much higher ground of a safety that, okay, if the bigger guys are saying this might be right. So that's where I have a mixed feeling that somewhere we need to find a balance, that till what stage we will let them run. Sometimes it's the other extreme that we let it grow too big and then suddenly put a complete break.
Absolutely.
Which also is a problem.
Yes.
Right. So these three different approaches is where, and I think it fundamentally comes from that we don't have a long-term vision, integrated policy
I was just going to say
on
that,
the
yes.
digital financial services.
Absolutely.
And again, it's 2 decades I've been saying it, that unless you have at a country level a very clear philosophy and a mission. And the biggest problem again of measurement. Today, fintech, where does it get measured in our GDP? Probably in some other services. Not
correct.
even in a financial services or a technology. So unless you something, we know it's big, we potentially know, but unless it's glaring on the policymakers' head that this was so big, clearly measurable, and now it can contribute this much. So the accountability also grows, the recognition also grows. So we need to systemically look at this problem as a first national level policy, our approach towards it. Give a lot more clarity we've seen some vision document for certain segments like payments, right? Like sometimes on the lending and banking, but not everywhere. But do you have a clear vision document for the sectors? And do you have a clarity about how are we measuring and where are they contributing? Can we get that data to be measured? And make everybody accountable to it.
No, absolutely. And in spite of being the forerunners, RBI themselves with NPCI, and we've been the forerunners in creating this whole infrastructure, digital. It's not that it is by the way that somebody first started.
And we've seen the benefits. So that's a gift city,
so
whether
why
it's
not have
NPCI.
then why not have the long-term vision and the...
So you have seen that benefit whenever you have taken it for a segment. Let's say for payments, we did it with NPCI. For gift city, we are doing it for certain segment.
Correct.
Why can't we have it for the entire sector?
Correct.
And put it all that together. And give a lot more predictability to every stakeholder, including investors.
So since you said you've been talking about this since 2 decades, you've been an active member and a lead for many things, whether through GFF, whether as PCI, whether through your own. Then what are we not able to bridge the gap?
I think the prioritization in the government's mind, there are so many things happening. So you always kind of struggle for it. Also, I think... See, when fintech was a small industry, let's say 10, 20 founders, it was easy to work cohesively and create that common impact.
Right.
Today, suddenly we see a culture in fintech founders where as you get larger, you think, I'm good enough to handle my own affairs.
That's true.
So
a lot of these guys.
So I'm seeing that lot more, which wasn't the case in the first decade of the industry. That people were okay to sacrifice something of your personal entity, as a personal leader, if it is benefiting the whole ecosystem and focus on that. I mean, some of the amazing things we've created with that, whether it's NPCI, whether it's GFF, whether PCI. But suddenly we are seeing that people who are getting bigger, they think it's okay, I just need to grow. If others don't grow, it's okay. But they forget that if the entire ecosystem doesn't grow, ultimately it will create pressure on you as well.
Correct. So what is the biggest risk in India's digital finance ecosystem today then, according to you?
Well, I think one, of course, you called out early the whole cyber risk and the fraud, right? That's definitely there. Second is that if you talk about, while we are talking a lot about AI, but the other part, quantum, we are not even talking. So the problem is that financial services is one of the biggest user of technologies. And there are certain technologies we have no clue. Even in AI, while every company claims that they are AI, but what are you in AI? Where do you fit in the entire ecosystem?
Absolutely.
Will we become a labor's market again, like we were earlier for a software in AI? Will we really create value? And how are we going to use if you're not controlling it? And quantum, which has much more meaningful, likely to have more meaningful impact in the AI itself.
Yeah.
We don't even have, we've not even yet started. We don't even own a computer.
No.
So some of these bigger challenges are that, and again, the potential risk of a quantum, what it will do to let's say the whole industry. In my mind, the war that we saw, the current war was not won, but let's say fought through drones, right?
Yes.
In my mind, the future, the way the technology is growing, and especially in a quantum and AI combined world, integrated, you don't even need drones. All you need to do is probably through digital systems, cripple your defense systems first,
Yes.
followed by your communication, which is telecommunication, and third is your financial system. You don't need to do anything. And with the quantum, encryption can be broken in few seconds. There are some efforts, but how ready are we? We're lucky that the quantum encryption break was to be due in 25. We got lucky it's not happened yet, but it can happen any day around.
And we are not ready.
We're not ready.
Yeah.
Majority of people are not ready. There could be
yeah.
exceptions. So the biggest risk, these are much fundamental, bigger risk. I'm sure government is looking at the defense first and then probably look at communication. But the problem is financial services, if you're, let's say, top 10 of your banks, financial institutions are compromised, you again have a problem.
Absolutely.
Right? So where is our work on that? How much of, again, last 3 years, every forum I've been talking about quantum. I'm not seeing, other than one state talking a little bit about it and some work being done, I'm not seeing enough. And even our larger of our IT players, they were talking, I remember, about AI, but what they have done in so many years in AI.
No, we're still in the service mindset.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So same thing. They all know about it. They don't do it. They don't talk about it. And then they keep giving excuses.
Right.
So we need to think about some of these fundamental challenges that are likely to be faced. Looking at the today's scenario, like you mentioned, I don't think the war is going to go away anytime soon in a decade. In some way or a form, it will continue the way the current scenario
and
is.
Today it doesn't look like winning or losing. It just continues. You see the Ukraine, Russia.
So it will become a new reality. So in those new realities, how resilient we are.
Yeah.
What are we doing about things like CBDC and a wholesale tokenization of currency, right?
Yeah.
Why can't we create a basket of countries' currency? We have the technology. We have the know-how. We talk about, using more local currencies, rupees, but can we then bank on some of these newer technologies?
Yeah, makes sense.
I have also been discussing in a private closed circuits that I understand RBI doesn't like gold import, government doesn't like. The reality is that people love gold. Everybody is hoarding, you would hoard.
Especially in India, yes.
Right? Can you look at a Singapore model? What they've done? Look at China model. They've created the best exchange in China.
Yes.
A lot of gold has moved from US to China. And that is what has created a different level of panic. Look at Singapore. They created a largest warehouses to store gold.
Yes.
Can we create an ecosystem around gold where you become at least a storage, you become a holder, you become a market maker for a gold, so you can control one aspect of it.
Yeah.
We have a gift city as an amazing infra. So I'm saying sometimes running away from a problem is not a solution, or blocking out that problem like we did in crypto. What has happened?
Yeah,
we don't like it, nothing. So it's neither a successful nor unsuccessful, but frauds still happen. People still get scammed.
People are still pushing
so
their money outside.
So we have not solved it.
Yeah.
But if we take a stand and solve it and accept it that this is a problem, here we are trying to be in a denial. Denial is not the solution in some of these things. Right. We'll have to first accept. First, we'll have to strengthen our mind to see the consequences. And then see with those consequences, what is something we have no option but to do.
And we should, because I think you're making a very interesting point on gold, right? Why can't we? Because today morning I was reading in the papers or news that we have liquidated, or we have given to really safeguard again our rupee.
Yeah.
So instead, India is gold holders.
How do we start, controlling the prices? How do we start controlling the markets? How do we start controlling the suppliers to come and trade here?
Yeah.
And why can't we create a 24/7, some sort of blockchain kind of a exchange, which is a lot more transparent? Everybody wants to come with all the benefits possible. We can run it.
Why
we have
can't
that
we lead
advantage.
all these things?
Exactly.
Yes, with the kind of human knowledge we have.
Yeah.
So coming to you, talking to, and this is a very interesting point that you're making, and I hope my listeners, somebody is really taking note, because it's important. So the human side of building an ecosystem, because whilst we understand ecosystem, but there is a lot. So you as a founder, and now influence as an ecosystem builder, was it difficult for you to move and really convince people, because not everybody sees ecosystem the way it was?
So that was always the challenge, and that's the biggest challenge whenever you build an ecosystem. That how do you drive consensus in an ecosystem?
How do you drive consensus?
Yes.
That's the point.
But I would say maybe we were lucky. There are 8 or 10 founders. We call ourselves dinosaurs of the payments industry. I'm talking early days, more on a payment industry first, then I'll come to the fintech.
Yeah.
The good part is everybody knew that today we don't exist for RBI. And one single problem is that we need to build trust in them to allow us to do more. So that clarity in everyone's mind, even if outside the room you would compete tooth and nail in the market with each other. But there's one thesis that we can't do anything where RBI doesn't trust us.
100%.
Right? So we have to build that foundation
100%.
where they see you as, not just see you, they know that you are the right guys to do it, and then you mean to do it right way. There may be things going wrong, but with their guidance, we're going to fix it. We're going to work hard on it. So that one common theme, so that one common theme worked. The biggest problem that we saw there, that the common customer experience across the financial services product is still not achieved. I mean, even today there is a friction, but let's say it's a lot better than what it was.
Yeah, agreed.
Right? So that was a common theme, that can we come together, and at least for customer, it doesn't matter who's servicing.
Absolutely.
He needs a predictable experience.
Correct.
Whether he's buying insurance, and it's the same common issues everywhere.
Yes.
Right? Whether I'm buying a policy, whether I'm taking a loan, I need a common minimum basic experience.
Absolutely. And take the friction away.
So that was our theme when we built FCC. So I'm saying it was always about sitting down and thinking that what is the most burning issue which is cutting across, and the biggest one to solve. If we solve it, it benefits everybody irrespective they compete or not compete. So that work we used to do a lot between, let's say, 3-4 of the key founders who would put in a lot of time from their personal voluntary time, etc. And then we'll come up with that, socialize it, and then bring people together.
Nice.
That has been the secret sauce.
So that has been your... Okay. So people talk about exit as a success story. But when you let a company go, you also let some part of you as a part of it, right? Because it's not easy. You really put in your heart, soul, emotions. So what is it that you have gone through?
I think I've got better at it because I've done it now 3 times. It's not easy. The emotions are not easy to control. But I don't know, maybe at least personally for me, I call it a switch. If I'm on, then I'm fully on and I'm fully involved. Then comes the time if I decide that, okay, I'm off, I put that mental switch, then I could take myself away completely.
Okay.
It was obviously a lot more difficult when we did it for the first time. But I could still do it to 80-90% level. Then I mean, while we were doing ItzCash, we were also doing Payment Council of India. So again, after a few years, I kind of switched off there because I said it's enough that I've done 12 years of chairman. Then FCC, the same thing. GFF, the same thing. So I've realized that over a period of time, I also realized that there is a role that I play, which is at the foundation level. When you have the complete open canvas, when you can't see anything. Because I believe that when you have to create something completely new when no one can see, my role comes the best. If I had to bring the whole ecosystem together, I could do it. Having done all of it, probably when it is on an autopilot, anyway, I don't like it.
So you don't like that, then there's no role you have to play.
So I've kind of also learned that I'm utilizing best of my skills. I'm giving my best of the talent that I have for that phase. And then moving forward, because that's also, I realized that it's also for my self-learning. So partly it was also selfish that I knew already payments is my leadership. I needed to learn about rest of the sectors. Obviously, we were doing interesting pieces that when you do payments, you're horizontal. So you anyway cut across every leg.
Everything, correct.
So partly we knew, but the others may not recognize you as that. So I said it's an opportunity for me to learn more. So like spend a lot of time with NBFCs, for an example, in the last 8-9 years. So it was also an opportunity for me to learn rest of the areas and grow.
Service. I find so interesting, Navin, especially I'm in this journey myself. So I am more inspired because I also believe every 8-10 years reinvent. Maybe in today's day and age, 8-10 years is too long. But I kept reinventing. And from what you're saying, yes, because if you open yourself to larger things and you carry your strength is where, but that switch on, switch off, one has to learn. So looking ahead, because since you have been quite a visionary in this space, so if I had to do a crystal ball gazing, and India was moving towards the whole developed economy. We said by 2035, 2040, we want to be there, and but so what are we missing? So if you look ahead at 2035 and whatever, what is that one thing about India's digital finance story that most people are still underestimating? Where do you see us?
So one is, like I said, partly we covered it, that one is our ability to create newer models. Our success is not about replicating and copying.
Yeah,
Our
we are
success
not
like
able
UPI has come when we invented what was required for our country to grow.
Yeah.
Right? We did, let's say, a couple of other models. We have some amazing successes in, let's say, in exchange, some groundbreaking work that we've done. We built some very interesting models like gold financing, the whole entire gold loan model. I don't think it exists.
Correct.
So I think we have to reflect and say, which is what we are underestimating, that in India, there are some unique opportunities and some unique models, which we developed and evolved based on our entrepreneurial ability, the ecosystem, the technology, and a service mindset that we have. We need to keep reinventing and keep building and nurturing that. What we overestimate is our, taking success as a granted. All these models, including DPI, we think ourselves as a big success. But we forget that still there are a lot more things that other world is doing and moving.
Right.
And one which is unrelated, which I am seeing the whole current ecosystem and what is unfolding, is that all smart countries have figured out their independence on energy.
Independence on?
Energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I fail to understand that we are a nuclear power country, right?
Right. Yeah.
We have ability to make bombs and end up energy. Why haven't we doubled down or probably 100 times kind of gone ahead and built that capability?
Yeah, true.
Right. So some of these fundamental things which we are taking for granted and still not fixing really worries me, that these are the things some smarter countries have fixed. Japan had the same problem. They fixed with nuclear energy. Despite all the issues, they used it for their advantage.
Yes.
We have the same capability. We're still, because ultimately this will impact our segment and the industry as well.
Agreed.
Right.
That's so true.
So some of these things we need to fundamentally think. We can't keep saying that, okay, we are leaders in this. It's been a decade
I'll sit
now.
on that, because today...
We don't see, if I see next decade ahead, I don't see any new areas where we're likely to be leader. Maybe defense to some extent, but will we have a leadership status on a cutting edge? We don't know.
Yeah, because we keep listening, right? I mean, one of the semiconductors, whether it was the whole energy that you're talking about, many areas we are still not starting.
Yeah, I get worried when, we take proud in saying we are mobile phone exporters. I mean, are we really? Reality, we all know we are assemblers.
We are assemblers.
We are the job marketers.
Yeah.
We don't own, we don't control. So somewhere this artificial pride may hurt our country, not seeing the reality as it is. And socializing that to the right fraternity. I understand everybody doesn't need to panic. There's no need to panic around this also. But in the right circles, people need to know these realities, and they have to actually procrastinate around it so that they find solutions. If they don't, we see us losing leadership status also very fast in a lot of areas.
And if not, we already are, let me tell you, because I think this whole one war, what our entire number 4, the reality is as a country.
So that what triggered that, okay, why couldn't we just achieve? We have all the means.
Right.
We have the capability.
Right. Absolutely.
I feel a bit lost because I thought this government has a lot better vision than others. So whereas I see suddenly the priority is getting misaligned.
Misaligned, yes. That's what everybody.
Or maybe I don't understand what they understand. I mean, because again, the dynamics are different.
Very different. But what you're saying is most of the inner circles, this is the conversation which keeps coming that,
so it needs to probably get more noise so that, see, unless there's a noise, unless there is attention, you won't solve it.
Yes. No, absolutely. So what should India protect at all cost?
I think India is known as a relatively more tolerant kind of economy, country, more resilience with growth, with
and that's
democracy.
Our advantage, right?
So, this whole diversity and unity, while unity is still kind of a question mark, but generically this whole diversity, but still a little bit of a unification that we have to somehow guard, we have to protect.
Diversity and means from the youth of India?
Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I keep telling that in our business, how do we balance the diversity, but with respect for unification? Even for organization, I keep talking about that you need to do diverse products, diverse channel.
Yeah.
So this is a theme for our country. This has worked for us in past. And somewhere, I think our knowledge status has been going up and down in the world.
Mm.
We need to retain and improve on it. India was known as a wisdom capital in a lot of things, and we keep proving that in between, but we're not able to do it consistently.
Consistency is missing. Okay.
And we're not able to reiterate that, hey, still the best talent, most knowledgeable, still the best, ideas at least come from him. Yeah, we have a challenge on resources that we have to work on, but that continuity has to be there. That's where the China is doing much better than everybody else, including US.
So what are they doing differently that we should learn?
I think 2-3 things. The best of the talent that they send everywhere to learn, they're able to get them back. And they don't just say it, they genuinely support so much.
Mm.
I mean, we don't just say for ease of business for the sake of ease of business. It should be the actual case.
It should actually. So they really
so if somebody really is the best of the best in a certain area, whether a microchip or whether a silicon or a quantum, if they come back, they're the kind of treatment and the advantage they get. And this is how, if you see today what they're building, whether people openly acknowledge or not. I mean, let's talk about a company like, I think Huawei. One time it was blacklisted. Yeah. Today you see their product. Today you see their innovations.
Yeah, what they've done.
Today you see Xiaomi, the way bringing their vehicles. So from a copycat to an innovation,
absolutely, and
challenger,
truly made in China.
We spending too much of time just talking about our past laurels and just feeling good about it. We need to do a bit more than just talking about the past.
I agree a lot more. On closing, so Navin, you have, after these roles of founder, investor, policy voice, ecosystem builder, what is now that Navin is solving? What is this stage of Navin looking like?
Well, it's not just this stage. I've been kind of doing it for last 10 plus years now. It's a very simple question all of us have in our mind. Some spend time, some don't. Who am I? That's one simple focus. More and more time. Who I really am.
Did you figure that? Because I was going to ask you that.
Oh, well,
who is Navin Surya out of all this?
If I figured that out, probably I wouldn't be sitting here. But there is definitely very clear focus on at least learning a lot more. The challenge is that every time you feel you figured out, you get an answer, but then you suddenly get something else.
So what are you learning currently? What's your new passion or challenge?
So there are 2-3 things. On the personal front, I continuously spend more and more time on the spirituality side, learning as much from the old documents, let's say, testaments, whatever you call it.
Something I saw on your LinkedIn, though I couldn't pronounce it, some Sanskrit words.
Yeah. So that's my life philosophy. It is there in my tattoo also. It says, Sivoham, Brahmoham, Siddhoham.
What does it mean?
It says, I'm Siva, I am Brahma, and I'm the eternal consciousness.
Oh.
So this in some ways summarizes who am I, but, our mind still wants it to be proven.
So you still are seeking
So it's still a process. So yeah, that's the phase I am in. That's where I want to devote more and more time as I can.
So I'm just going to now change the gear from more interesting, serious stuff to more fun, rapid fire. One fintech word you think is overused?
KYC. I think it should be CYA. Don't ask for the details.
I was just going, what is CYA?
I can't say it on the public.
One BFSI category India is still sleeping on?
I think insurance and to some extent wealth.
One fintech category that is overhyped?
This is an interesting one. I think it's still payments.
Yeah? Why? I mean,
I think the hype cycle is over, hopefully, but we still have a lot more to do.
One fintech category you would personally bet on for the next decade?
Insurance and wealth both, actually.
What you're saying is underutilized.
Yeah.
Finish this sentence. The biggest myth about Indian fintech is?
Okay, so myth has been this is a business that also has a huge social impact. But on a positive side, but I've seen off late the negative side of it as well.
So it's more personal, not social. On that note, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was the most
Thank you very much. Very interesting list of questions. Thank you.
Thank you.